Well, good morning. Welcome back to the broadcast for Timer Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. And our top story today, teens in a mental health crisis, what parents can do. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Alyssa Mairanz is the owner and a therapist with Empower Your Mind Therapy. Alyssa, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to discussing mental health.
Yeah, this is a pretty important topic. I think there are a lot of parents out there. We'll get into what they can do in a little bit, but there are a lot of parents out there who are really struggling with this on behalf of their children. So let's talk about the state of teen mental health, because some people said it's a crisis. Other people have raised other issues. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't necessarily call it a crisis. I just think a lot of teens are struggling with mental health, and it's been a little bit increased with social media and how that impacts one's mental health and just advanced technology and changing of culture. And so it's definitely something that I think needs more and more discussion so that parents and teens know their options on, how to get help and when they know something's wrong.
Yeah, and look, it's been a while since I've been a teenager, but teenage year, it's been a long while. But in all seriousness, teenage year is very difficult. I mean, you're still growing, evolving. You compound that with the pandemic that these kids all went through when they're all working virtually. That is a recipe for some mental health challenges. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. I mean, I think about also being a teenager was not easy. That was also quite a while ago. And, I couldn't even imagine what the impact would have been if I had to live through a pandemic as a teenager and, the anxiety when you're still trying to figure out your identity. And now the world seems to be in this major crisis and no one knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really, it's real hard to do when you're kind of stuck in a bubble. It's so much of growing up and being a teenager is kind of figuring out the boundaries. And I can certainly attest that that's something that I did. And my parents are probably shaking their head right now as they're watching the program. But let's talk about, you mentioned social media, and I want to talk a little bit about that because a lot's been made about that. And look, I mean, we all use our phones. I'm addicted to my phone, and I'm not a teenager. But how does that impact the human brain and maybe the teenage brain?
Yeah, obviously I'm not a neurological expert. They can speak to that more, but just from a mental health standpoint, when you're so engrossed in your phone, you're in somewhat of a fictional world. And that definitely takes away from living in reality. And when you're a teen trying to develop and, learn who you are in the world, you're missing something when you're more in your phone versus out in the real world. And with social media, I think a lot about this for myself, the comparisons, right? You're looking at all these different people and what their life is like. And it brings a lot of people to question, like, why am I not this good at that? Or why don't I have this? And that could have a really negative impact on anyone, especially a teenager as they're trying to figure out who they are in this world.
So for parents out there, and last question before we go to a commercial break, but for parents out there, how would they identify a teen in crisis, a teen, someone have some challenges with their own mental health? Is it looking at the schoolwork? Is it looking at has their behavior changed significantly?
Change is a big key word. I think looking at behavior and grades alone could sometimes be misleading because, every child is going to be different. And I think a big thing parents need to do to help their teens is put less pressure on academics and, a child just doing their best. And so any major change in behavior, especially if it's, a negative change like lower mood, more isolation, any dipping in grades, from their usual, definitely an indicator that something could be wrong. And on the other end, and also like if there's a complete change in, going from low mood to like quite highly elated, or being more social or doing a lot more things, and it seems like maybe they're burning themselves out, that is something to look into as well and make sure that they find a balance that's going to be more effective.
Are teenagers, I mean, again, we're talking about development, and they're all different. Teenagers go anywhere from 13 all the way up to 19. So that's a kind of a broad age range of development. But how do they deal with their own mental health challenges? Do they talk to is it not cool to talk to your friends? Is it, do they do things that maybe are not legal? I mean, how do they kind of cope with this, I guess is my question.
Every teen is going to be different. Some are going to be closer with their parents and want to share. Some are going to feel more comfortable sharing with their friends. Others have maybe a teacher or some kind of mentor to talk to. And so because every teen is different, the key is to make sure that your teen does have someone to talk to, and parents accept that it may not be them, and that's okay, as long as they know their child is getting support somewhere. And my bias as a therapist is I really think everyone, especially teens, could benefit from that support, because there's a lot going on, and to have someone completely objective, and trained in helping someone go through all these things could be really beneficial.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Alyssa, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what parents can do. We'll talk about therapy and a lot more. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2 this morning.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying our talk so far and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, this is so important, and we can't give enough time to this topic. Alyssa, what do you tell parents? I know you're a licensed therapist. You probably talk to a lot of teenagers, probably talk to a lot of parents. Parents have to be sometimes be frustrated. How do you tell them about how to cope with some mental health challenges for their children?
Yeah, a lot of parents, really struggle with that because, you really worry about your kids and you want what's best for them. And so one of the key things I tell parents that often is overlooked is make sure you're also taking care of yourself, right? I think there's importance to, if you take care of yourself, you're able to be more present for your child, and you're also modeling healthy behaviors and things that you want to see your child do. And that's something that's really important that often gets lost because parents are so focused on their children's well-being, which is, good to know that they're concerned, but, can have a downside.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring up a really good point. Look, my parents, they still are really concerned about my brother and I. I mean, they're not helicopter parents, but they feel what we feel. I mean, every parent, I think, wants to do what's best for their child, and they actually take part of the emotional stress onto themselves. Would you agree?
Definitely. And that leads into something else that parents can do is make sure that they're invalidating what their kid is going through and keeping their own emotions in check and finding another outlet for it. I hear from a lot of teens, and I mean, adults can be dealing with this too, that often something that really negatively impacts their ability to deal with everything going on is that when they do talk to their parents are openly expressing how concerned they are. And then the parent in turn is taking on that emotion. And it becomes this cycle where parents are taking on teens' emotions. And so the teen is taking on the parent's emotion. And so finding that balance where you're listening and letting them know you're there, but not expressing everything like a crisis or big concern, and finding another place for that emotion for yourself is huge so that you can really make the focus on your child rather than on yourself unintentionally.
And you talked about teachers in the first segment. I mean, whether they're, I guess, college professors, maybe not college professors, but teachers, they still, I think, have the parent-teacher conference, but being in close touch with your teacher, having the teacher, maybe making the teacher aware if there are behavioral things that they should be aware of while they're teaching their classes?
That definitely could be important. I think, though, it's also important to not treat your teen, even though they're young, they're kids, as if they're like living in a bubble and they don't know what's going on. And it's helpful to be open with your kids about what you share with the teacher, and also talk concretely about how the teacher can maybe support the child without, being very obvious to the whole class, but also giving them a concrete solution rather than just like, hey, be aware of this, because teachers themselves don't necessarily know what decisions to make on how to support a child in these various situations.
And last question, Alyssa, how do you balance, teenagers, as we said, cover a wide range of ages. When you're 18, you're an adult. And how do you balance that as a parent? You want to help your child, but if they're 18, 19, 20 years old, there are some legal bounds where you're now an adult citizen. You have your own personal responsibility, but how do you balance that? I mean, that's a tough transition, I think, just in general for parents, but even probably more so for mental health.
It's a huge transition for both, the teens and the parents. And the key thing there is for parents to just let their teens know, like, I'm still here for you, and to help them learn how to be an adult in a way that's a slow transition. Sometimes I hear from teens, they get very frazzled when a parent is all of a sudden like, I've been doing all this stuff for you, now you're 18, do this all yourself, right? And so it's making sure you're teaching your kids the skills that they need to live in the adult world and not fully taking your support away in ways where you want them to learn how to be independent, like financially, let's say, and just continuing to be a support and help them build towards independence without it being like, let me pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah, I always feel like life's like a pinball machine, and you kind of run into the different flippers and the different parts of the pinball machine. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but whatever it is, you have to adapt, and parents and teens both have to learn how to do that. Alyssa, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, or visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired of the same old
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.